Hi, my name is Lynn. I am here to demonstrate to you the setup and operation of the Medtronic INVOS 7100 Regional Oxygen Saturation Monitor, often referred to as a NIRS monitor, near infrared spectroscopy monitoring. The 7100 model is the latest on the market. It is new and improved from our 5100 model. It is lightweight, it's portable, its menu is super easy to navigate. It's a tablet style, so it's actually touchscreen. As I mentioned, the portability of this allows you to snap it out of its docking station and actually take it with your patient if you were to need to go to a diagnostic study and you did not want to disrupt that monitoring. So when removing it and replacing it back into the docking station, you simply align the little filaments here with the filaments that are down in the docking station and snap it back into place. The monitor, or excuse me, the battery is actually located on the back side. It gives you about 1 hour of battery life. And to remove that or change it, your clinical engineering or biomed people would just be swapping that out in the future if needed, but it's just a simple opening of the lever here and it just pops out, pops back in, and just want to make sure it's secure in there. So we're putting it back into the docking station by aligning those filament strips and then simply popping the clip back on top to secure it. So looking at the monitor itself, in terms of the features available on the bottom here, we have the AC power plug-in here. We have a VGA port here. The VGA port would be for transmitting the system's data onto some type of an external monitor for viewing. The serial port next to it is for interfacing the system data with another multi-parameter programmer system, such as like if you have a Philips cardiorespiratory monitor that features multi-parameters, this could interface with that so that you could see your NIRS values on that screen, but it also could be utilized for setting up the electronic medical record interface as well. And then you have USB ports for downloading data to look at case histories at some point if your institution or providers want to do that. The top right corner here is where your on-off button is. Your preamplifier, which would be connected to your sensor cables, is there back here on the back of the device, and there's 2 of those available. If you're only monitoring cerebral and perirenal or somatic, you would only need 1 of the preamplifiers, but if you're monitoring 3 or 4 sensor sites, you would need to have 2 of these preamplifiers. They come with a hook so that they're easily connected somewhere near the patient. The cord is plenty long so that it reaches the monitor, whether it's on a base as it stands here, stationary, or if it's mounted on a pole along with your other monitors farther away from the patient. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug the power into the bottom here where I mentioned AC power here. When that is plugged in, you have the blue indicator light here. That means AC power. Up here on the upper left, you have the green battery indicator there. And as I turn on the monitor here, you're going to see a little quick blue flash there, and then it's going to go through a couple of setup screens here. And while we're waiting for that, we'll go ahead and we'll take our preamplifier cord and we're going to plug that into the back. And it has a red dot that aligns with the red dot on the port back here. And so I'm simply going to push that up into place and it automatically snaps in. If I were need to remove it, I just rotate it quarter counterclockwise and then pull down and it easily disconnects. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect that. Now I have my patient sensor setup screen, and basically it's told me to connect my preamp to my monitor. So I did that, and now it's telling me I need a sensor connected to the preamp. The one thing that did change with the move from the 5100 to the 7100 is that the adult and pediatric sensors and sensor cables have changed. And so they are quite sophisticated because they now have a lighted portion near the patient sensor that lights up. If I were to touch my sensor indicator on the screen, this is going to light up blue near the patient to indicate, yes, that particular sensor where I want it to be cerebral is indeed on that sensor by it will light up and say that, yes, I've basically traced this line. So that's the adult and the pediatric. And then for the infant sensors, those have remained the same, no change, but they do require the use of what we call a RIC cable, RIC, that hooks into the preamplifier, and the infant sensor is the longer looking sensor with the cord that looks kind of almost like a pulse oximeter sensor cord. Same packaging. And so it's indicating that I need to set that up, or I need to put my sensor in place. So I'm going to I'm just going to connect it into the cable. And if you'll notice that it very quickly posted a number and turned green. So each of your sensors is going to be a different color. So if I had 3 to 4 sensors here, if I did 2 cerebrals and somatic, then each one would have a different color designation. So now it's basically blinking here on the preamplifier, telling me that I should plug another preamplifier cable in there if I want to monitor that second sensor. For purposes of demonstration, we're not going to do that, but I will show you that these can be pulled around into different directions or into different parts. So if I wanted this one to come down here on the body, it's not going to come down. I got to do this one. I don't know why I'm not getting them in the right place. There we go. So you're able to move those around to indicate that indeed this second one I'm going to put down in the perirenal area, indicating it's a somatic sensor site. So once I'm satisfied with my sensors being attached here, and also this gray arrow indicates that if I was using 3 or 4 sensors, I would start with my cerebrals and move around in a counterclockwise fashion so that when I am looking at my screen, when I'm monitoring, I'm seeing my cerebral on top, followed by the somatic sensors. For a new patient, I'm going to choose new data set. However, I might also want to put in a patient ID, and this would particularly be important if your providers or anyone in the institution is doing any kind of research utilizing some of the case histories here. So you could put in a patient ID. I'm going to go to new patient data, but if I did want to come back to this screen at some point, that append old data means basically to go back to your current patient. So that's important to keep in mind. The little gray circulating arrow here is telling me that the system is trying to set a baseline. So it's averaging my numerical values here to set a baseline. And the reason we want that baseline set is so that we can set some alarm parameters around that. And it's just good so that you can just, look at your patient and in that first several minutes and say, yes, my patient's values are in this range. The system defaults right now to a 1-minute averaging time, but it can also be set as high as 5 minutes so that it would spin and spin for 5 minutes. But at any given time, I can also go to my menu and I can go to set baselines and I can retake my baselines and then close, and it will retake the baseline. The baseline is going to show up over here. And so if I had 2 sensors here, this would kind of all move up, and then my second sensor would be down here. But the baseline will always be on your left-hand side. The green indicator, numeric indicator here is a percentage. So right now I'm 1% below my baseline. If it were to be above, the arrow would move up on top, so indicating that change. This is my sensor indicator here. So it's going to be green My next one, if I had a second one on, would be a different color, would be blue. All 4 of your sensors, if you had all 4 on, would be a different color, just for easy reference. The little dots along the top of the circle are like your cell phone. They are signal quality indicators, or a signal quality indicator. So if I have all 5 of those dots lit up, that means I have good signal quality. Up here, it's just showing me that I have a neonatal sensor, date and time, full battery, and then that I'm actually charging here. There's a charging indicator, but if it were fully charged, it would have like a little dash line indicating that I'm fully charged with AC power in place. So when navigating the screen here, we go to menu, we look at alarm limits. Alarm limits right now on this particular one are set to default at 20% below the baseline, whatever that baseline was, or is set at for that particular sensor. But if we wanted a numeric value, and again, this depends upon what the institution is asking for, we can configure it, or at any given time, if you wanted to change a patient to, say, they are maybe at 70 for their left, or the green sensor there, we can put that to 55. We can say, no, I want to know when it hits 62. But mostly what we're seeing is that a lot of institutions are choosing the 20% below baseline as sort of that threshold for intervention, where you want to go back and you want to assess your patient and potentially intervene when it hits 20% below the baseline. So also, if I wanted to set upper limits, I could do that. The high upper limit is going to be 95, and the lowest limit you could set for a low alarm, if you were to change, if you were in the numeric range and you wanted to change that, is 15. You can't go below 15, okay? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn my upper limits off, but again, you could set different ones for whichever sensor. And we'll go to the auto, the 20% below. Next in the menu is the settings. The general is your screen brightness. You can go up or down on the screen brightness. Nighttime, you might want it lower. The auto baseline period, that initial circulating arrow, I could increase that to 2 minutes if I wanted, or up to a total of 5 minutes. And then you also have on your alarms, you have your alarm volume. Many institutions just permanently have the audio part of their alarm system off. This doesn't mean my alarms are off, because you're going to get all of your alarms illuminated in yellow, and so you're still going to get your alarms, you just don't have the audio portion. However, if the institution would like, we could set different specifications for silencing and pausing and things like that, so that audio would be a part of your alarm system. When you go to trends, we can look at either a 1-axis view or a 2-axis view, and when we're monitoring just the cerebral and potentially a somatic or perirenal, 1-axis view is usually adequate. But if we wanted to separate, when we're using 3 or 4 sensors, if we wanted to separate our cerebrals from our somatic, we could choose the 2-axis view. Events is a complete list of events that you can mark for your patients. So there's quite a few to choose from here, several pages, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. When we go to the sensor setup screen, we already looked at that. It's just the same as what we saw in the beginning. And when I go to my event marking here, say that we initiated cooling, or let's say we cardioverted our patient. I can go up and down on my screen here, and I can choose cardioversion, and I can click OK, and it will set that marker. If I don't see something in my list, that's when I could go back to this settings here, and on events, I could say I want chest closed, because we're in the OR, we're using this in the OR, and I want to have chest closed as one of those events. Then I would just X that, or indicate I want to use it, and then I would close it, and then when I go to my events, I could see chest closed right here in the list. Okay, and then when I click on these little flags, it's going to tell me what those indicate, or what those events were. And so here is that cardioversion, and it lists the time in which that occurred. The other feature that's really nice with our updated model is that on this screen, in terms of the time frame, I can condense this to just a very short amount of time, or, excuse me, I can also bring it out to cover a larger portion of time. And this is nice if I'm reviewing with the provider, if I'm reviewing at change of shift, I can easily go through what the patient status has been and where the desaturations have occurred. I can look at events. The other thing that's really nice about the screen is if I wanted to look at sort of, especially when I don't have a lot of data here, maybe I want to say, oh, I didn't quite chart when I was supposed to, maybe it's not connected to my EMR. I can actually just put my finger on the screen and then scroll back and forth. And in 10-second increments, basically, it's going to, 10 or 5, I can't remember what it is, it's going to tell you what that value was at that particular time, so that I can, just kind of review that or see, the changes. We talked about that. I think that pretty much covers it. Do you have any questions? Okay.